My friends, they started getting like kind of normal jobs. Some of them went away to college. But for me, I just never felt like that was going to be something that I did. And then people were like, yeah, but what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I remember my dad having a conversation with me about something to fall back on. I was like, hey, if I'm going to plan to like fall back on something, then I'm just going to fall back.
Before YouTube, before influencers, that didn't exist. So did that exist somewhere else in your life?
No, I don't think I really saw that. You're going to have to, at some point, sort of manifest your own success.
Did you ever feel like you were at risk when you started kind of making the transition from gym bro to entrepreneur?
For some reason, I have continuously put the cart before the horse. I think I just have a mindset of like, I'm just going to pull the cart myself if I have to. Hey, let's start this show off with something fun. Let's check out this clip of The Rock. This is great. When wrestling was great.
Yeah.
You've been in the ring with a lot of scary cats. I've been in the ring with a lot of scary cats. And yeah, this cat is scary. He's big. He ain't King Kong Bundy walking around here. Remember Bundy? Hey! Hey! He ain't Kamala. Remember Kamala? Rubbing his belly. Oh, here he comes now. Scary. Watch this. Rock, ask you something. Ready to go out there and whoop candy ass? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready? You bet your ass I'm. It doesn't matter! Rock and Kane team up with Hulk Hogan. And you know something, brothers? Whether it's the millions and millions of Rock fans,
Crowd's
or
going nuts.
20,000 Hulkamaniacs, or 20,000 screaming Canaanites.
Canaanites?
The question is, brothers, what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan and The Rock and the Big Red Machine run wild on you?
That's a big guy fired up, too.
Yeah. Oh, man. That was so cool. Dude, I didn't know.
Wrestling back there was so much fun.
I didn't know Kane spoke, though. Back in my day, he just like
burned in a fire back in your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Undertaker's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of holes in that plot line.
Yeah. The writers got fired after that.
That's
one.
kind of fun when you're WWE. I think you can kind of just make stuff up, right?
Uh-huh.
Get to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that and cartoons.
I grew up watching some of that stuff, and I think that some of that might be a little bit related to how I ended up so screwed up. How I ended up this way. How I ended up.
That's how we got here.
I think today we're going to be talking about, breaking out of a mold, breaking out of, maybe standard ways that people think that you should live. Or, I mean, we've seen the model broken by many now at this point. This day and age, there's a lot of people talking about not going to college. College used to be like someone was in 9th grade, 10th grade. It's like, you got to think about school. You got to think about college. Remember, 11th grade goes on your permanent record, Andrew.
Well, I mean, so this goes to show, like, yeah, I think it starts at like 10th grade now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
Remember, when you got hired here, that's what we looked at. Was your 11th grade. We're like, 11th grade Spanish. How did you mess that up, Andrew?
Always got a C.
That's weird.
In pretty much everything, though, it's just like, okay, D's and C's get a passing grade. All right, that's what we're going for.
Hey, in some situations, like a double D or a C is really nice. Yeah. See?
Yeah, that is true.
Right?
Yeah.
The way that I grew up, I think is it has a huge impact on the way that I am today. And for me, when I think of like breaking out of a mold, my parents were just amazing. My parents were just great. They didn't really care about boxing me in so much. I don't know what gave them the confidence to do that. I don't know if it was that the bellboys eventually broke them in and broke them down, and then they couldn't force religion and school down our throat any longer, or what happened. But they weren't real forceful on stuff like that. My parents also did do a good job, though, of forcing you to do certain things. I don't know how many of you remember this, but do you remember your parents encouraging you or kind of forcing you to do something, and then you ended up kind of liking it? Sometimes it's like, I don't know. There's some things that maybe you didn't really like in the moment because you wanted to like play a video game with your friend or something, but you went to grandma's house and you got to see your cousins and like it was fun. You're not going to admit that it was fun, but it was fun. And it was also nice because you saw your grandmother. Mm-hmm. You don't realize that when you're 9 or 7 or something like, yeah, like, I don't know how many more times I'm going to see grandma. So this is really nice. I did go, and also seeing them when they're younger, rather than like, seeing grandma when you're in your 20s and she's like, just not doing well. Like, it kind of sucks. It's nicer to see them when you're younger. But my parents, I think they found, at least with me, maybe not so much with my brothers, I don't know. But with me, they found that kind of balance of like when to push and when to encourage or when to kind of back off. My dad was very involved in a lot of stuff that I did, baseball and different things. Like my dad would be part of like a booster club to raise money for certain things. And my dad, being a financial person, like knows how to do that kind of stuff. My dad has a lot of energy. My dad at 75 years old, just like a week ago, worked from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. Bottling things of liquor for my brother-in-law, just because my dad thinks stuff like that's fun. And my dad's, there, and he's jamming these corks on these bottles and stuff like that. And like, I was doing it too, but I didn't do it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I did it about half the amount of hours of that, and it wiped me out. So my dad has a lot of energy, and he put a lot of energy into us. And my oldest brother, Mike, he wanted to be a professional wrestler. He was a professional wrestler. He wrestled for WWE. He wrestled on TV. He did a little bit of that stuff. He didn't quite make it to where he wanted to make it to. He had he had drug and alcohol issues. He was also bipolar. So like a lot of that interrupted his ability to stay on track and to stay focused and to be able to do what he wanted to do. And then my brother Chris is unconventional too. Like, he broke a mold too. And he liked sports and stuff growing up, just like the rest of us. We all like watched wrestling. We all loved football, all those things. But Chris wasn't super tall. And so he started to find his path. Wasn't going to be as physical as Mike's, and because Mike played college football and stuff too for the University of Cincinnati. And Chris started to find his own path through using more of his brain. And he loved movies, and he was passionate about that kind of stuff. And so he started out doing skits, just like whatever kind of crap skits, funny skits, silly skits, wacky skits, some good, some bad, some in the middle. But my parents were supportive of that too. Someone's got to buy your first camcorder when you're getting into some of that stuff. And my parents were fairly supportive of that. And my brother Chris ended up going to a junior college, and then he won a contest from going to that junior college, and that allowed him to go to USC film school. And because if it wasn't for my parents being supportive of that and being into that, I don't know if like my brothers got shut down on stuff, if they would have still done those things. But from my experience and what I saw, it was helpful that my parents were supportive and that they weren't like, you're never going to, what are you doing? You're never going to make it. Like, I never heard them tell my brother Mike. I'm sure my parents had private conversations where like, oh my God, what are our kids doing? Like, this is scary. Like, they're not going to have a real job. Like, what's going on? Mike wants to be a pro wrestler. Like, what is this? What is WWF? What is this thing? Or Mike wants to be a pro football player. Like, what are the odds of that? But my parents kind of believed in hard work, and I think they believed in some creativity. And so they weren't stifling all that. And it was really, really helpful. I, as a young kid, loved basketball. So my dad, put up a basketball hoop, in our driveway. And I was out there playing that all the time. I was always out like playing football and just doing different stuff. And even my dad is an entrepreneur, and my dad's dad is also an entrepreneur. So me being one, I don't know like how special that ends up being. Things are still different than what I saw my friends doing. Like, my friends when they turned like 16, 17, they started getting like kind of normal jobs. Some of them did construction. Some of them ended up kind of staying in the area and just being in like family businesses. Some of them went away to college and kind of went a more standard route. But for me, I just never felt like that was going to be something that I did. I didn't like school. I did go to junior college. I played some football in junior college. I went to Santa Monica City College, and I just hated school. I wasn't good at it. I didn't have good study habits. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to like put work in when it came to school. So I don't even know how good or bad I really was at it. I just knew I didn't care about it and didn't want to do it, and didn't feel like it had any application towards anything that I had interest in. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't understand why they keep trying to teach me all this different stuff. I have zero interest in any of it. And then people were like, yeah, but what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. But there's got to be different options other than history and science and math and some of the crap I'm learning in school. And so I, always knew that I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know exactly what that was.
So even back then, what do you remember what you thought was the mold? Because, I graduated in 2003, and the mold was you graduate with good grades, good enough grades to get you into a university. If that's not in the cards, then you go to junior college and you transfer to university. And then after that, you get a job, and then, that's how your life goes. Mm-hmm. So at that time, what was, in your mind, what was considered the mold for your every typical day high school student at that time?
Yeah, I graduated in 1995. So the mold back then was, you had like a guidance counselor in school, and the guidance counselors told you like, here's what you're in line to do, and you might be able to go to this college or that college. I don't really think I was in line to go to any particular school that was, really worth much. But at the time, yeah, people graduated high school. You try to get decent grades in high school, and those grades would kind of determine what school you went to and where you're placed within those schools. Then you would go to school for 4 years or however many years you needed to go to get your degree. You would get your degree, and that would give you a place. You would, those good grades that you got and your degree would now place you in the workforce somewhere, and you would have like, a prominent job somewhere. But I never even really looked into it or even thought about it that much. But I was like, I don't think anything that I ever want to do has any requirement for school. I knew that there was going to be an education component to everything all the time. I always knew that you can't be a dummy. I knew that. You might be able to be stupid in school. That's one thing, but you can't be uneducated in the particular area that you want to succeed in. You're going to have to gain knowledge there. But I knew that I didn't want to get it in school. I just didn't know how to say it, and I didn't understand where else to get it from, because education only came from school at that time. And there's like other options now. There's like unconventional schools. I sent my son to Acton Academy for a little while, and he liked that, and that worked pretty well for him. And that's where like the students get to kind of almost like vote on what they get to learn, and it's just different. Mm-hmm. And it might be a good option for some people. But I didn't really know about stuff like that when I was a kid. I didn't know about some of these other options. I just went to kind of like a regular public school. But I always knew that I wanted to do something different, and I always knew that it was going to require me to have some sort of skill. And so that's where things did get sketchy and things did get iffy, because it was like, well, what skill do you have? You don't really have a skill. You're not good at reading. You're not good at writing. You suck at math. You're not amazing at like remembering stuff. You don't seem to have like a real passion necessarily, although I did like sports and I liked physical stuff. I liked lifting. I was good at lifting. But, back then I wouldn't say I was like, super passionate about it. I did go to the gym. I did like getting stronger. But it was just kind of like, it was just like there. It was like in the background. It was like somebody being on like a basketball team. Like they might like it, they might enjoy it, but they didn't love it so much that they were going to extra camps for it. And like lifting wasn't like that for me in the beginning. It was a lot more modest than that. It was like, I did it. I trained, I wouldn't say I trained hard, but I did train with some sort of intensity because the people that were around me, that's just the way they worked out. And so, people were squatting, benching, deadlifting, and they were working on getting stronger, and they were working on getting bigger. And so, I wasn't like all in on that. I wasn't like a maniac about it. I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I know now. But I was like half in, I was doing pretty good with it, and I was getting stronger, and it was helping to build a lot of confidence.
So you were into it, but it wasn't necessarily your thing yet. But as you were kind of going through the motions, we'll say, did you get frustrated that you didn't have your passion? Like you didn't have the thing that you wanted to work towards?
No, because at that time, I guess I sort of misspoke. At that time, I had football. I loved football. I was fucking crazy about football. And I knew everybody's stats. I knew like what college this guy went to. I knew all that shit back then. And I still know quite a bit. And I observed football a lot too. Like I even know the game of football, even from like a coaching point of view. Even when I was a kid, I started to learn that. I started to learn about like certain plays and how they run. And like, I just really, really liked football a lot. And I always wanted to be like a pro football player. And when I was a kid, it was like, oh, I'm pretty big. Like, seems like I'm kind of in line for that. But as I got older, and as I went to like a junior college and ended up playing with Chad Smith and Ocho Cinco, and just seeing some of these really high level athletes, I was like, oh, I'm like, okay, I'm not those guys. Like these guys are running, 4.4s and 4.2s, and like they're unbelievable specimens, unbelievable athletes. I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I'm not them.
Steve Smith. There it is.
Steve Smith.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Chad Smith.
Smith.
You combined Ocho Cinco.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Steve Smith. Sorry.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think Steve Smith is probably a Hall of Famer. I don't know if Ocho Cinco is in there.
I think he could one day get there.
Yeah, he's probably close, right?
Yeah.
He's got some stats, right?
It's just, the Ocho Cinco-ness of it all is going to make him wait a little bit till he can get in there. But I think he's deserving as well.
Yeah. So I built a lot of confidence through playing football, even though as I got older, I recognized I wasn't amazing. When I was younger, I was pretty good. Like I was one of the better players on the team and stuff like that. And when I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, my oldest brother, Mike, that's probably about right. Yeah, I was probably like 9 years old. My oldest brother, Mike, had a friend named Jeff. And Jeff, my brother always has the funniest, like sore loser stories of all time. My brother Mike went out for the wrestling team. My brother Mike, he just destroyed everybody. He was bigger. He was a bigger kid, and even though there was a heavyweight class, he was like way bigger than everybody. And anytime there was anybody to wrestle, he would always smash them because the people in the heavyweight class, there was either no one to compete against because he's like 16 and in a heavyweight class, or 17 or something like that, or the kid is just real heavy and not very good or athletic. So that was my brother's friend Jeff was just a big kid that went to another school, and Jeff basically kind of fell on my brother and pinned him.
Oh.
His name is Jeff Leibolt, and Jeff was over our house a lot. He became good friends with my brother. And he always teased my brother about it. It always drove him nuts. He's like, fuck you, I'd beat the shit out of you. Brother really get all stirred up about it. It was amazing. And, Jeff would watch me like throwing a football around, and he would see me like, I don't know, just doing stuff. And he went to some of the football games and stuff. And he knew my brother Mike and Chris. They called me Smelly. They always teased me. And Jeff was like, this guy's name shouldn't be Smelly. This guy is like the chosen one. Like, he's going to kick all your asses. Like, you guys are all done, And that meant a lot to me when I was a little kid, because these guys are 6 or 7 years older than me. And the coolest thing ever when you're that age is to get any sort of admiration or anything from somebody else. And so he used to mess around with my brother a lot, and he would say, it doesn't matter what you do, man. It doesn't matter what weights you lift or how you do anything. He's like, your brother's coming for you, and he's going to wreck you. And my brother kind of hated that. But those were sort of the things I heard when I was younger. And as I was mentioning with like lifting, even though I wasn't like crazy about it, I was really good at it. I went to local competitions, and I was a heavier kid as well. And so in the weight classes I was in, anytime there was someone in my weight class, I would be able to beat them easily. And it was also easy for me to beat some of the state records and some of the national records. Because again, those kids, first of all, there wasn't tons of records at the time because it wasn't super competitive. But I was setting records at the time. Fairly easily, in powerlifting, you get 3 attempts. You get your opening attempt is your lightest, and you're not allowed to go back down in weight. And you have opening attempt, second attempt, third attempt. And with my opening attempt, I would usually break a state or national record on the opening attempt, and then crush the record, even further. I remember like going into some competitions and just being arrogant, being like, I'm going to do the state record for like a triple or 5. I never did do that, but I always wanted to. But anyway, that helped build a lot of confidence too. And then, I don't know how many people have, I'm sure people can relate, like either good or bad. You hear like whispers, right? You hear people talking like, so when I would be in school, I would hear people be like, man, he's a badass, he's super strong, or like, oh, that's Mike's little brother, but like, dude, he's really strong. He's Chris and Mike's brother, but he's super strong. Like I would hear all these things, and there were things that built a lot of confidence in me. And just over the years, the confidence built more and more, not so much to the point where I didn't really feel like I was like arrogant necessarily, but I felt really comfortable with who I was. So it didn't matter that much where if I didn't feel like I had like, I didn't really even think about whether I had a purpose or not, because I was a badass, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm getting confirmation from other people. They're saying these things, and people would speculate as if, if I fought this other guy in school, they'd be like, oh, Bell would kill him. And I was always like terrified because I'm like, I don't know how to fight. I don't want to fight like one of the guys on the wrestling team who's like one of my friends or whatever. Like, I'm just like, this is dumb. Like I'm pretty sure I'd get my ass kicked because I even knew back then, I was like, I don't have a skill. I know how to throw some punches. Mm-hmm. I did some boxing. So if I catch him with one of those, that would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But if he picks me up, because my friend Matt was a wrestler, and he was only like 150 or 160. I'd mess around with him and he would just kill me. He was like Settlegate. Yeah. He would just, and he loved doing that, because I was a lot bigger than him. He played on the football team and stuff too. But yeah, I had a lot of confidence, and I also had confidence from my parents. I don't really know what they did to help with the confidence, but they were kind of always there just like when I needed them. If I was sad about something, my mother in particular, she would point out the things that I was good at. I remember a couple of times being frustrated about like school, and then she was like, hey, like when you arm wrestle your friends, like what happens? When you run against your friends, what happens? When you lift with your friends, what happens? I'm like, yeah, I kill them on everything. Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah, you kill them on everything. She's like, you have something special within you that is remarkable, regardless of how you think about yourself in school or whatever. And those kinds of things stuck with me, and those things mattered a lot. So as I got older and just kind of recognized, okay, well, like the dream of being like a pro football player, those kinds of things, they're not going to be there. I never really felt, I can't even really think of times where I've Just trying to make sure that's accurate. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a day in my life where I have not had a day in my life where I've ever felt bad about myself.
Pat Project family, we love beef on this podcast. We talk about it a lot. All right. We love our meat. But sometimes eating the same meat all the time can get a little bit boring. That's why we partner with Good Life Proteins, which also has certified Piedmontese on their website. But sometimes you might just want to eat some chicken or fish or duck. Duck. Who eats duck? But you can eat duck. That's why if you go to goodlifeproteins.com, you can select their Build-A-Box options and input all the proteins you want. Then you'll select subscribe and save to save money on all of your meat. If you enter code PowerProject at checkout, you can save up to 25% on your subscription. That means you're going to be saving 25% on all of that different meat that's going to be heading to your door. Once again, head to goodlifeproteins.com. You can enter code PowerProject and save up to 25%. Links are in the description box below, as well as the podcast show notes.
That's amazing. So like again, like your parent, like, I mean, shit, best parents ever, but they never tried to like sway you into like son, like, you know, I got this tax business. Look how well we're doing because of it. Like I'm my own boss, that sort of thing. Maybe this is something you might be interested in, or, you know, I don't know. Do they try to get you out of the weight room to like son, you're going to have to grow up someday type of vibe?
I remember my dad having a conversation with me about like something to fall back on, you know?
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
And so I said to him, I was like, hey, if I'm going to plan to like fall back on something, then I'm just going to fall back, you know, like I don't have a plan. Like I'm just going to keep going forward. I'm going to keep just trying to do stuff. And, you know, and then he just like, I remember him asking me, he was talking to me in the car about it. And I just remember like, got like quiet. He didn't like say anything else. I think he was just like, well, who the hell knows what will happen with that? He's like, but I tried, because I'm sure like him and my mom probably had a conversation.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, you should probably like, you know, talk to him in some sort of realistic way. Like, you know, I think he thinks he's going to do all these great things, and maybe just, you know, kind of narrow down his focus to something more realistic.
And then again, so like this is, I don't know, I'm just really loving where this conversation went down, but like, at that time, were you also like living at home and relying on mom and dad to like get through life? Because I know you went to school in SoCal and they were still living in New York, New York at that time. So you were no longer under their roof. But as you're telling him like, no, I'm not making a backup plan. Like, did you still need to like rely on them for like getting by in life?
That conversation probably happened when I was like, I want to say like 18 or something. Like I was probably still in high school ish, or like you know, I might've been like 19 or 20, you know? So at that time, I was home for something, but, I can't really remember the exact time, but yes, when I was going to junior college, when I moved, to SoCal, because my brother was already there for his going to USC. Yeah, I needed a lot of help from my parents. Yeah, they helped me out a lot, and so I think that's where some of the conversation was like, if we're going to support you, you know, if we're going to help you out financially, then like you need to, you know, maybe do some of what we're suggesting. Like we would like to see you go down this path because, yeah, we're supporting you, and we want to not support you to a certain extent, so that you can one day go off and be on your own, you know, so you can learn how to do this on your own. But, you know, luckily they didn't like cut me off or shut me down. I think they just knew that I was going to need more time, you know, than maybe some other kids. So I think that is an interesting thing. I think that, you know, if you think about most kids when they do go to college, they probably are getting help or assistance from their parents. A lot of times they can't work or work enough to really make ends meet. And, but they're so proud of their kid for being in school. They're like, my kid's going to Washington, or my kid's at, you know, Arizona State or something. But it's like, they're still not doing anything, you
Cool,
know?
So he's partying with more people.
Yeah, and hopefully he's doing something productive, you know, hopefully something cool's going down there. But you'll see this with your son too. As your son gets older, that people are always going to ask what sport he does. And like, if he's interested in sports and likes them and he has a good time in them and he does well in them, then cool. But he doesn't care about them that much. It's good to get him some exposure, have him try the sports. But who gives a shit? You know, it's like, so I'd have parents, you know, with my kids and stuff. They're like, oh, my son plays baseball. And it's like, your kid's 5'5". Like they're just, they're, you know, yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad that they found, you know, and he loves it. He loves it. Yeah, it looks like he really loves it. He's out there like crying half the time. Fuck you talking about?
So far, this has been just like the coolest like parent teaching moment. So like I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I know your dad had his own tax business or financial business. I know I think your grandfather also had like a dealership type of thing. Was there anybody else close to you, or maybe even closer in age, cousins, friends, whatever, that went, you know, they broke their own mold, and you're like, oh shit, like, damn, maybe this is possible? Because it's just, for the time, you know, again, before YouTube, before influencers, before...
I never heard of like entrepreneurs and stuff like that.
Before trying to say alpha elite. That's not a diss. It's just we joke around about we can't speak sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, none of that existed. So the thought of being like, I'm going to be a power lifter and I'm going to, you know, make that my career. Living, that didn't exist. So did that exist somewhere else in your life?
No, I don't think I really saw that. I do think
Makes
that
it even better.
Yeah, I do think that. So I do think, you know. So my dad worked for IBM for 19 years. One more year, and he would get his pension. He would get like 70% of like his salary or something for the rest of his life or something like that. And they let him go. Like IBM was in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's where their headquarters was. They had a shit ton of employees, like thousands of employees. They started cutting back. And at that time, it was pretty common for big companies like that to, like, quote unquote, trim the fat. And the fat that they would trim would be the 40-year-old guy who's making $100K, you know? And that was my dad. And my dad he didn't even like skip a beat. It was like, I think it was devastating. I think he thought it sucked. When he left there, he told me, he's like, I, you know, realized I didn't own anything. Like I had nothing. Like I learned so much there. He's like, and I felt like I did a lot for the company. He's like, but when I packed up my desk, he's like, I had a picture of you guys, and he's like, a pen that I bought. He's like, and there was nothing else in the box because I didn't own anything. He's like, the desk is theirs, the computer's theirs. Everything's theirs. He's like, I didn't own anything. And he's like, I kind of just felt like, shit, man, I don't know if I don't even know if I like grew while I was here. Like I earned money, but that's it, you know? And he's like, and they escorted me out like they do with everybody else. I'm like, damn, like a security guard, you know? And, but he didn't skip a beat because at the time he was already doing a little bit of real estate stuff. And he was already doing a little bit of his tax practice. And so he just switched everything over to that. And then like the license plate of his car said buy a house because he was a real estate guy. Our mailbox had this giant sign that was like insanely embarrassing. It said Bell Financial Services, but like underneath the mailbox was a thing that he welded himself that said Bell, and it was just like gigantic, you know? And like you'd go by the house with like friends and you just be like, oh my God, you know?
Like,
and
that's your house.
And I think I think we got in trouble for it. Like the sign was like too ridiculous. It was like
it was
too big or something like that. Yeah, and he made like shirts and stuff, and so like I did see that from him. And going back even further, which I didn't really remember, but I'm sure it was stuffed in the subconscious somewhere. My grandfather, he had like a used car lot and he was a mechanic, and he would, fix up cars and sell them and stuff like that. But he also made like shirts and hats, and my dad shared this with me, and I have taken this too. He said people love free shit. He's like, so people come in here and they buy a car. They spend like a couple $1,000s buying a car. And he's like, and I give them a free shirt. Like the shirt's not free. They just spent like $3,000 or $5,000 or however much money they were paying for some of the cars back then. And so I don't remember seeing that, but that's who my grandpa was. Like, and I know that I was around that whenever I went to his house. I remember, I also remember my dad, and my dad still does this. My dad actually, a couple days ago, he was like going on and on about the story about how somebody he was with was really annoyed that he always takes a phone call. Always. He'll always take a phone call. No matter what he's doing, no matter who he's talking to. I guess, minus some sort of emergency that's happening right in front of him, he will always take a phone call. Well, that's his like lifeline. That's how he makes money. He's a financial consultant, and he also does taxes, and people have questions, and people want to make appointments and stuff. And so if his phone rings, he will always answer it. And he's telling me the story about how somebody he's with got super frustrated with him about that. And he goes, hold on a second. And and there he is on the phone. He's like, Mike Bell, And he goes, yeah. He's like, okay, yeah. He's like, yep, it's okay to have a delay on that. Yep, it's going to be fine. It's going to work out, and he hangs up. And I was just like, that's like just like a meme right there. Like he should the sunglasses should have came on, and the OG gangster song should have came on right there as soon as he picked up the phone, because he's always ready. So I did see like versions of that around, but no one said anything about being an entrepreneur. Something that does come to mind is that weights and money went together really well. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but for those of you who haven't heard it before, our basement when I lived in New York was when my dad lost his job. He turned half of the basement into an area where he could do taxes and meetings and stuff like that with people for financial services. And the other half of it was our weight room. And that's where my dad bought us like a full on like squat rack, Olympic lifting weights, and just like regular barbells and shit that you see now in gyms. But that wasn't common back then. So I still never understand. I'll never understand how he knew what to get. I'm sure you dealt with this before, Andrew. Like you tell your parents like, that you have a PlayStation and they buy you like a Sega Genesis game. And you're like, no, you're like, oh my God, like that. You're like, that console doesn't even exist anymore. I don't know where did you even find what you just bought me for, like, and you can't say anything because, like, I don't know, back then you just get your ass kicked for everything. So
I know exactly when it was. It was the Christmas of 1999. And the reason why I know this, because my cousin that year got a Sega Dreamcast, and that came out in 99. And I was super jealous of that one.
Dreamcast. But that's where I learned to play Worms.
Oh, dude, Worms is so good. I had asked for, it was kind of like NBA Jam, but it was called like NBA Primetime or something like that for PlayStation. And like, oh, what's this box? Like, this is an oddly shaped box. I don't remember asking for anything like this. And it was that game for N64. And I'm like, what am I going to do with that? I mean, it all got sorted out. And I remember that Christmas break. That's all me and my friends did, so it was like the coolest gift ever. But you bring that up, and I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what happened.
Yeah, you got to go to the store and try to like
hope that they still have it in stock and all that.
Yeah, so I don't know how my dad figured out like what weights to get or whatever, but he figured it out, and we had enough stuff to like definitely get started. But when I would get done with a workout, I remember I would go and like just mess around on his computer and stuff, and there was some form, I can't think of the name at the moment, but there was some form of like internet that was actually coming out around that time. And I remember like seeing information about the Orange Bowl and Jerome Bettis and how well he did. That's how long ago it was for Notre Dame.
Whoa, I got to look up what year that was.
Yeah, and it was anyway, he was like the MVP, I think, of the Rose Bowl that year or something, and it gave us like updates, like live or something, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "What? I don't understand. What are you talking about? Like some sort of internet thing?" So anyway, I'd poke around on his computer here and there, but he would tell me the money that he made. You know, so like while I was working out, he was in there making money, and he's like, "Oh, I got a check from your aunt. It's $120. I got this check from your uncle, $200. I got this from." He's like, "Oh, you know these guys from church and this person from over here and over there." And I was like, "You make money from like your friends and family?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I make money from everybody." He's like, "Pretty much everybody I know, I make money from." He's like, they won't let me do it for free. He's like, "Your aunts and uncles," he's like, "they're not gonna." He's like, I have done them for free before, and I have helped friends out that need it. He's like, "But most people won't let me do that." He's like, "This is what I do for a living." And I just remember thinking, like, that's really cool. Like, how do you figure out how to provide a service to people? Like if you were a chiropractor or a massage person, everyone deals with pain at some time in their life. So maybe you have a job like that, or you help, like everyone needs financial help, or everyone needs their taxes done. You provide like a service and you get money for it, even if it's like your brother. I was like, that's pretty sweet, pretty cool. I want to figure out something like that someday.
The Power Sandal version 2 is here. Last year, we partnered with Shama Sandals to make a sandal that all of you guys would like to wear out, but would also be functional for your feet because, well, flip-flops fucking suck and they're bad for your feet. That's why we made these. But these are the version 2. Has a tan Vibram sole, which will last you thousands of miles. A German leather footbed, which will mold to your foot with every step you take. So the cool thing about these sandals is that the more you wear them, the more comfortable that they become. It has a heel strap so that it doesn't mess with the way you walk and you can have your natural gait, which is why in these Power Sandals, not only can you walk in them, which we're all walking, you can run in them, you can sprint in them, you can lift in them, and they're going to be great for your feet. But now, rather than the all black version 1 we had, there's a little bit of color to the baby. So now you look a little bit better in these. If you want to get them, head to powerproject.live. We appreciate your support, and we're so fucking pumped to get these on your feet.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing that story, because what I was going to ask is like there were hints, right? Like how do people kind of look for those hints when it comes to like, okay, I don't know, society, mom, dad, spouse, brothers, whoever it may be, they're saying you need to follow this path. This is the mold. Like you can't break that mold. But then your dad has a business practice right next to your gym. It's like, wait a second, that's a little hint that the universe is dropping on me.
Right.
I shouldn't ignore that. So like, I mean, yeah, how do you kind of navigate that? Like, how do you kind of keep the radio signals open to receive that information?
Yeah, I think it's super important that, you're, I think that it's super important that you're open to understanding that you're going to have to, at some point, sort of manifest your own success. Like it's going to have to be something that you believe in. And again, having confidence and having my parents believe in me was always really helpful. And so I think my eyes were more open to those things as opposed to somebody that was maybe down and kind of out and like, man, nothing's going to turn up for me. But meanwhile, when they say that and their head's down, like something amazing is going on in the background and they're maybe not paying that much attention to it. But I also just kind of felt like, I just sort of felt like if I'm a good person and I put in some work, like not crazy, like I don't have to be like insanely organized. I don't have to show up 15 minutes early looking perfect with, shaved and combed and like groomed and all these things. But like if I'm just a good person and I work fairly hard, and I'm just good to people in general, I always just thought like good shit's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like good things will happen to me. If I'm kind to people, if I share things with people, if I know that I could help somebody, if I can help lift somebody up and help pick somebody up, or communicate with them in a way that gives them more knowledge to bring them up to speed on something, then I always felt that would turn into something. I always felt that would really help. I also think that it was really helpful just to be good at something. So this is something that I try to communicate the best I can with people. Like I think each person has like a divinity with them. I think each person has almost like godlike features or powers within them that are amazing. There's that dude on the Spurs, Wemby they call him, right? Mm-hmm. 7'4". Like, okay, that's an obvious one, right? But I think that other people have that within them. They have some sort of, okay, his superpower is that he's amazingly tall. And then he's also done a bunch of other stuff with it to develop the skill set to where it looks like the guy might end up being the greatest basketball player anyone's ever seen, because no one's ever seen anybody 7'4" that can like move like that. It's unbelievable. So some people have these real obvious traits that are just like, just right in your face. And other people, it's like, you're going to have to mash together your skills. Like maybe you're not the strongest, but maybe you got good agility. Maybe you have decent speed, decent quickness, and decent experience. So you're able to win that jiu-jitsu match, because it's not always going to be about strength. It's not always going to be about what belt you are. Maybe you just kind of suck at everything. Like literally just you feel like you're not good at much of anything. Maybe you can kind of David Goggins it. Like, what does David Goggins do? I think I haven't been running for very long, but I can probably think of 20 runners that would smoke David Goggins depending on the distance. But who am I going to put money on? Like if I said, all right, well, Nick Bare, I'm like, I think Nick Bare would be way faster than David. David Goggins is fast. David Goggins is way faster than me. That's for sure. But David Goggins is very, very fast. But Nick Bare is probably faster. But
what if they have to carry boats?
Yeah. What if they have to carry boats? What if there's more suffering in there? I mean, Nick Bare is like, he's tough, right? Like he can handle a lot. But what if we're just talking about like the duration of the thing? So maybe you don't feel like you're that good at the thing, but maybe you can just outlast everybody. Maybe you can just, maybe you don't feel like you have a lot of good skills, but maybe one of your skills is to make people laugh. Maybe one of your skills is just to like show up early. Like I suck at everything. So I'm just gonna develop this skill to where, and it's not even really a skill, right? It's just some time management thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show up 15 minutes early to everything all the time, because I know that I suck and I don't want anybody to see that. And this is going to be the one thing that I can offer, and you're always there 15 minutes. These little things over time are going to be the things that will help turn you into something and help you to excel and help you to maybe get past some other people on certain things. David Goggins has this unique skill set of being able to like dig deep within himself, but he just has he just outlasts everybody. He's just like, Cam Hanes was telling a story of like, he didn't know what happened to him. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I was running, and he's like, we were running pretty fast, and he's like, I don't know what happened to David. And there was cameras there and stuff, and there were people who were asking him questions, and all of a sudden people started hearing, "You don't know me, son. You don't know me, son." And it's David Goggins. He's up and he's running, and something happened to his foot or something, and he needed to stop for a while, and just stuff got weird for a little while. But then there he was. He came back. And I mean, I think each person, if they're being honest with themselves, they can see some signs of like things that they're good at, or things that they can excel at, or things they can be, luckily for me, I got really lucky, I think, in a lot of ways. I think that successful people don't talk about this stuff enough, but I had two older brothers, I wanted to be like my oldest brother, and I wanted to be like big and strong. And I had weights. My dad bought us weights. They were in my garage. When you hear the story of like Bill Gates, I think Bill Gates grew up in an area where some of the first computers were used in school, like when he was in like high school. So there's like circumstances like that are just like, okay, there's other people went to that same school, and other people had access to those computers. But Bill Gates saw the signs. You know, he saw like what he could do, and for some reason that technology and the combination of those things just really resonated well with him to where he could turn it into something.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking a little bit ago about like there was no influencers, there was no this thing to be like, okay, that's my path, I'm going to follow that. But there was like personal trainers and stuff, right? There was gyms all over the place. Did you try that? And I keep coming back to your story because I think there's like way like more things to learn than me just asking random questions. Like if I just ask you stuff about your life, I think people will learn a lot more. But like that was also a thing, right? Like training was a thing. Did you try to get into like coaching and training and that sort of thing?
I did think about that when I was as I got a little older. It was something I thought about doing, but here's kind of an interesting piece of the puzzle is that although I was confident and although I felt good about myself, I wasn't confident enough to do certain things because of my bad experiences in school. So when it came to like getting certified and stuff like that, I was like, what is that about? Like, do you really have to do that? And so I actually did do personal training for a while. But oddly enough, in California, you can get insurance to be a trainer without having any certifications. I don't know how that works, but I think just the insurance companies want your money, I guess. And so that's what I did. And then I got experience working at a gym in Los Angeles, and I had no previous experience. So I just told the guy, I was like, I'll do whatever you want. I'll open the gym and all that kind of stuff. And so I did. I opened the gym up again, just somebody that could be reliable, someone that could be there early. I'd open up the gym probably for, I don't know, like a year or maybe even longer, like 5 a.m., depending on what day it was. I think Monday through Friday was 5 a.m. and the weekends was 6 a.m. And I didn't do that 7 days a week, but I did that often and made that drive often and opened the place up and had coffee ready for people that came in and shit like that. So I learned a lot of good lessons there, but when I was training people, I really liked it a lot. And I really felt that once I started doing that, I felt something with that was going to happen. I was like, there's something within the gym that's going to happen. I don't know how or why, or maybe I'll own my own gym. Maybe I'll lead a group of trainers or something. But, I wasn't, even though I powerlifted when I was young, I wasn't like Mark Bell, the powerlifter yet. I didn't squat 1,000 pounds and do all those things yet. Wasn't known. No one knew who I was or anything like that either. So I didn't have like a name or reputation built up to really do any of those things. But, working as a trainer was something that was valuable, and it was something that I liked a lot. I liked coaching people. I liked helping people.
Okay. Yeah. Cause like, I'm just thinking, when I wanted to be a photographer, I was like, yeah, I'll do, whatever. And I started trying things, and I quickly found out like, oh, I really, really don't like doing like kids' birthday parties, or I don't like doing whatever it may be, but like, oh, weddings are pretty stressful, but I think I can get through it, and they pay really, really well, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Even though it wasn't like the thing that I ultimately ended up doing, which was, working, here at Slingshot and doing like getting into fitness, photography, if that's even a category or whatever. But I had to try things. And so like you said you enjoyed it, but like, I don't know, is that a kind of a breaking of the mold path that you would recommend for people? Like if it's somewhere in the ballpark, like you hear in the corporate world, just get your foot in the door,
Mhm.
and then from there you'll work your way up. So is that like kind of the same approach for somebody trying to, get out of that 8 to 5 rat race path to be like, let me try this, but if I want this, I'm going to probably have to go over here first.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to get some experience, and get your hands dirty, Although I liked training, I also recognized its limitations. I got to a point where I trained, some trainers are probably listening, and they're probably like, oh yeah, I've been there. Like, you train 6, 7, 8, 9 people in like a day, and that's a lot. And sometimes you would train like 2 or 3 people at the same time within a given hour, and sometimes you do that like back to back to back, and now you just worked with like 9 people in an hour, and you kind of forget like where you are, you forget what time it is, you almost forget like what exercise and who the hell you were talking to and how you organized the workout. Like, shit just gets like foggy and weird. It's not so much from doing that from one day, but you do it every day, and it starts to wear on you, and it starts to get to you. So I recognized there was like a lot of limitations there, and that was important for me, because I started to see like, oh, like, this is cool. This is a nice way to make some money. I don't mind making money this way. However, it seems difficult to make a lot of money this way. And I don't know how long I'd be able to really survive doing this. Like, I would have to like set my own schedule, which I'm not a good enough trainer yet to do that, for this to really work. I'd have to only work with like 5 people a day, and I could probably handle that for like 5 days a week, and I could probably do that for maybe just a couple of years even. And I just knew that like that wasn't going to work. And I just remember, not at that time, but later on in my life, when I started, my personal development stuff didn't start until I was like older, unfortunately, which is actually kind of interesting, because I don't want to say I already knew stuff, but I had already found and discovered a lot of things by the time I got to that point of starting to really listen to things like YouTube and paying attention to like people that I would call like mentors via YouTube. But I did just kind of like just walk backwards right into some of these ideas of like, oh shit, you're not going to make that much money like actually being like in the gym. Like, that's not going to really work that way. It's almost like the gains that you get from the gym. The gains that you get from the gym are from the recovery from when you're not in the gym. And the money that you're going to get from the gym is probably in figuring out a way to promote your gym better. It's probably going to be, again, from outside of the doors of the gym. Like, when you're actually in the gym, how much money can someone pay you, and how much money could you possibly be worth? Like, there's just going to be a ceiling on that, no matter how good you are. Like, let's just be honest. I mean, how much are you really going to charge, and what magic are you going to perform to where someone would pay you more than like $200 an hour? Like, it just starts to get crazy. Even if you're training like a high level athlete or something, it's like, maybe it's warranted because he's doing really well and he's making crazy amounts of money, but it's really not. It just can't be worth that much more money. So I recognize that I need to make money somewhere else. Later on, as I did get more into powerlifting, and as I started to establish myself a little bit in lifting, that's where a lot of the personal development and growth started to happen, because then I got linked to Dave Tate, and Dave Tate was running a business. He still runs a business, EliteFTS.com. And Dave started introducing me to a lot of these ideas. He's like, if you want to make money, like, the gym business is not a good spot to do that in. And if you do want to make money in the gym business, then you need to talk to people that are already in it. And you also, most likely, if you're going to be a trainer, you're going to have to figure out how can you have trainers under you to where they're bringing in some money, but you're able to get some of the money as well because you own the facility, you own the equipment or something. Mm-hmm. And so that's where my mind started to go for a long time. But still there was like, I didn't have any ideas on actually how I was really going to make money. I just started to formulate ideas that, I guess I started to formulate ideas around exactly what you said was, I'm like trying stuff. I'm trying shit. I'm working on it. And as I was working on it, I'm realizing like, this doesn't work that great. But it wasn't like I would refuse to do it. I still did it because I was like, I just kind of needed to. But at the same time, I didn't necessarily hate it. But I was also like in my head thinking like, I don't want to do this for very long. And I'm going to have to figure out something else.
Nootropics. Every single biohacker and their mother talks about the benefits of lion's mane or alpha GPC, blah, blah, blah. We have this mix of supplement. But no one really tells you how to analyze what you actually should be trying to take or what problems you may have. That's why Andy Triana has made the Nootropics ebook now on our website at powerproject.live. Now, we've had Andy on our podcast multiple times, and he's educated us on so many different things along with nootropics. But in this ebook, he goes in depth on how to analyze what your problems may be specifically and how to utilize nootropics to help fix those issues or to help progress in certain areas. Like if you're wanting to speak better, think faster, communicate better. There's so many things he goes in depth on in this ebook, and you can get it now on our website at powerproject.live. The link's in the description along with the podcast show notes.
Did you ever feel like you needed to, well, not needed to, but you were, again, kind of doing that personal training type stuff, and you're like, if I want to make money outside of the gym, like that's going to be the leap moment or whatever it is. Like I'm going to have to risk leaving this to go do that. Did you ever feel like you were at risk at all? Like when you started kind of making this transition from, I'll say gym bro to entrepreneur and somebody that's actually going to, make that leap and make this your like actual like business?
I for some reason I have continuously put the cart before the horse. I don't know why I do that, but I think I just have a mindset of like, I'm just going to pull the cart myself if I have to. And if hopefully I can find some other people, sucker some people in to like pull the cart with me. But if I can't, I'll just, I feel like I can be a workhorse if I really need to be. And so, like starting the gym and stuff like that, it was like, it just really didn't make any sense. It just didn't. It didn't really make sense. Like if I was to like tell people or share with people, like it probably wouldn't be in their best interest to try to follow that path. But people have their own path that is probably would probably look odd to me or look odd to other people as well, because things don't always have to make sense, and also things don't always have to work out. So just because you try something and it doesn't really work the way that you want it to, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. All it means is that you have found a way that doesn't work, which is great because now you can move on to finding more stuff that works. If I think back to like the main chunk and the main recipe in this entire thing, it's developing a skill set. And it is like going all in on something. So eventually I ended up going all in on powerlifting, to where like that wasn't all that mattered to me, but it was, it was really important for me to get stronger. It was something I wanted to do. It's something, remember when I was saying I was young, I was good at it and I put time into it and it worked out pretty well. And I was able to break some records and be good at it. But as I got older, when I went back to it, everything changed. I wanted to be great at it. I wanted to not necessarily break records at that time. Those weren't things that were on my mind. What was on my mind was like, let me see where I can like actually push this to. Like what would happen if I've been reading about West Side forever. I've been reading about this stuff forever. What if I actually just moved there? What if I actually just trained with those guys? Because I remember going to the WPO finals that were held in Columbus, Ohio, at the Arnold Classic. And I remember I was with my wife and I'm watching all these guys lift, and I just kind of, I told my wife, and I don't think she believed me because these guys looked amazing. Chuck Vogelpool's on the stage, and Steve Goggins, who's like the first guy to squat 1,100 pounds. These guys are jacked. They're so jacked. It's just ridiculous. And I just told her, I was like, I think the only difference between those guys and me is body weight. I was like, I need to be bigger. I was like, and I need to, and I'm also not, I don't know how to train the way that they train, and I'm not training as intense as those guys, but I'm like, I wonder if I did, what would happen? Are they that much different than me? I want to find out. And she was just kind of like, she didn't say anything, but she was kind of like, honey, I don't really think so. Like, these guys are monsters. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Because that was long ago, and I think that was probably before I got on anything and all that kind of stuff too. So I remember just thinking, like, I didn't think, oh, if I get on steroids, I'm going to be able to crush everybody. I'm going to be just like these guys. But I did recognize, like, the body weight and the work was important. And so I ended up just putting all my chips into that. But I also have a lot of fortune in my life. My wife was working at the time. She was making money. So we had the ability to move. The job that she had, I mean, there's just like so much fortune that goes on in you don't really hear a lot of successful people sharing this. And I don't think it's because that everybody else that you hear from that's successful is like a self-made person. I just think that people don't like to share it because they think it diminishes what they've done. But I think it just adds to the story, really. My wife's an amazing person. She's incredible. She's very smart. And she can work her ass off. And she's always done a great job for our business. And she's always done a great job with making money, period. And always done a great job being a mother and an entrepreneur and all the other things that she does too. And yeah, she was doing well. But like the company that she worked for, she was like, and this is unconventional for that time as well. She was like, my husband and I are thinking of moving to like the middle of the country. Like, would it be okay for me to work from home since, I'm a salesperson and everything I do is from home anyway. And that ended up working out great because she had an LA salary while we lived in Columbus, Ohio.
I didn't ever think about that,
which is pretty cool. Because I mean, like, she worked for Westwood One. If you're like that's a legit company, it's still a huge company. If you're a legit company and you're paying somebody and you're in a big city, you're in Chicago or New York, or I mean, you're in LA, you can't. I mean, it's just impossible. You can't get away with like, paying people some dirt cheap thing. Like, word will get out and like no one will want to work for you. It doesn't matter what job you even have there. Like, you just can't get away with paying like some shit amount. It's just so yeah. I mean, again, there's like so much fortune involved in some of the story. But we moved to Columbus and I trained under the tutelage of Louis Simmons and learned just a ton from him and see that he doesn't answer to anybody. So that's where I start to see these ideas of like an entrepreneur. That's where I start to see a lot of this stuff. I see that he sets his own schedule, wakes up, goes to bed whenever he kind of wants. But he still chooses to wake up early. He still chooses to work hard. He still chooses to eat right. He still chooses to treat people well. He still chooses to be kind to people. Like, he didn't have to. He like ran this whole gym and could have ran it whatever way he liked. He could take advantage of situations and he didn't. He was mean sometimes because he's just like old grouchy coach, but for the most part he was, he put his heart and soul into everything. And I saw a lot of that. And he was also an inventor, and just kind of seeing that and watching that and observing that. I don't think I was like, oh man, I'm going to be an inventor too. Or like, I want to figure out how to be an inventor. It's just like, you couldn't help but have some of that, magnetism like rub off on you because he was like a one in a kind person, you know, inventing like the reverse hyper and the plyo swing and all these other things that he had. Even the thing that you see nowadays, you see so many people doing like Nordics and stuff. He made a machine that it's actually a machine that like helps you to do a Nordic. It actually has like a post. I mean, he had this thing 20, 30 years ago. You know, he had it forever ago.
Yeah, Vigorous Steve was just doing it. He showed a clip on Instagram today. Yeah,
the thing's been around forever.
Yeah.
You know, Louis, he was like a pioneer, and I admired that a lot. And he just had a different thought process. I was like, you know, Louis, like when he speaks, he had an interesting way of speaking, and I was like, he doesn't always say the most intelligent stuff. However, because that's just like the way he grew up and just where he lives and so on. But he had some of the smartest people in the world coming to him for advice on strength training. And I always thought that was remarkable. I mean, there was people from the UK, from prominent like soccer teams, NFL teams, NBA. There were sprinters there. There was fighters there. It's like everybody was there. So I was really motivated and inspired by a lot of that. And that's what kind of just all the other stuff I've ever seen in my life and all the other stuff I've been exposed to up until that point, I was always like, meh. Like it didn't matter what it was. It could be a car. It could be a girl. It could be money. It could be a job. It could be a video game. It could be anything. I've always been like, you know, all the way to the point where like my uncle, he would like take me out here and there. When I was younger, he would like take me for the day, like on his boat or something. And my dad would be like, well, how did he like it? You know, he'd ask his brother. And my uncle would say, like, I don't know. Like, your son is like totally emotionless, you know, there's something wrong with him. And I was just always that way. I didn't care much. But like when I came to whatever the algorithm and whatever the stuff was that Westside Barbell was made up of, that got me fired up. And that got me excited. And all of it made sense to me. Meanwhile, I've been reading and doing all these things for years where I would look at stuff and read stuff and things didn't make sense and words were backwards and upside down and there were sometimes numbers in there that weren't actually there. When I looked at all this shit, it just made sense and I wanted it to make sense and I wanted to like learn more about it. So I basically just kind of would hang out with Louis every day. And I did that for like a year. And then my wife and I eventually moved back to California, but that just lit a fire under my ass that is still there today.
Mm-hmm. You can fast forward as much as you want in the story, but do you remember at what point you felt, I'm going to use the word successful, and we can use that term in any way. It doesn't have to be financially successful, but like, when did you feel that you actually were successful in like, oh, I didn't have to go get the job. Like, you know, like when you quote broke the mold of your typical like American dream or whatever you want to call it. Like, do you remember when that actually happened and you were like, oh shit, like I was right in following this path?
You know, the progression was fairly slow, and I don't think I even really recognized it. I think what I can remember is that the first order of slingshots, I ordered like 6,000 of them or something like that because I was so confident that this thing was going to be great, and I also felt that I could sell them within like a year, and it just turned out like whatever those gut instincts were, whatever some of that intuition was, I did do that. Mm-hmm. There was like some that we didn't sell because I made some that were just way too small. And so those never sold. They were just like tiny. They were like made for a baby or something. Just didn't work out. But in doing that and then having that be like, you know, once we got through that inventory and we ordered more, it was just like obvious, you know, it's like, well, game on. It seems like, you know, and then from there, I initially didn't intend to make a lot of other stuff. I wanted to make the slingshot and really concentrate on that. But it was just so obvious that if you're going to handle more weight, that you needed wrist wraps. And so it was like, all right, I got to add at least another SKU, you know, and then over time started, you know, you make a wrist wrap and some people are like, those are too long, those are too short. And so you make like, now you make 36-inch wraps and 26-inch wraps. And
I'm just laughing because you're like, yeah, one more SKU. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I'm laughing because fuck, I forgot how many.
Yeah, we have thousands.
There's so many now.
We have thousands of them. Yeah. Well, at that time it was like doubling, right? It was doubling your SKUs, going from 1 to 2.
That is so wild. And I wish I could remember what episode, but like I remember we were in Ohio and me and Nsima were just blasting you with questions similar to what we're talking about today, but it was just mainly like how the company came to be. So if people are interested, I'll try to link it down below. Hopefully I can find it because we've done a lot of episodes now. But like I don't know, I guess in closing, like advice for people who do feel kind of stuck. You know, they listen to the parents, they listen to the siblings, they listen to everybody, because you know majority of listeners, they're already like done with the college thing and they are like, you know, everyday people, and we're grateful for every single one of them. But like yeah, what's some advice that you can give to them that they can take away today just to kind of feel a little bit better about their position and maybe what to strive for and like what direction they can start heading in right now?
Yeah, I think it's like kind of hard to say, but I think that like I was never trying to necessarily do anything. So I think that that's an important factor. I was always willing to like work, and I was always willing to put in time. But much like you see me today, like I'm not really trying to do anything. I just spend a lot of time doing lots of stuff that doesn't really make sense. I will sometimes just be randomly talking to somebody in the gym. Not to say like one person doesn't matter over another person, but like when I am speaking to somebody in the gym, it's not Andrew Huberman. You know, it's just like some random fan person, right? Like, and yeah, I would love to talk to Andrew Huberman or love to talk to some of the other guests that we've had here and have more time for that too. But it's because I will communicate with anybody because for one, I think it's important to be kind to people. But number two, I also think there's a lot that you can learn from people and there's a lot that you can get. So to try to just think that you're talking to someone to take something from them might sound a little selfish, but it's okay, I think, because the different perspectives that people have, you know, one of the reasons why I pour so much time into helping Russell, our buddy who is almost down 100 pounds, is I get so much from that. Like that helps me in so many different ways. Helps me feel good. Like I have the knowledge, I have the information. Why wouldn't I share it with him? I have all the information that he needs to get to where he wants to go. So why wouldn't I help? Like it makes no sense, right? So I have the information. We're friends. So why wouldn't I share it? But there's so much I get from him because now I'm learning perspective of how he thinks. And now I can learn perspective on how other people might think. And now I can start to learn perspective on like, oh, maybe it's just more difficult for some people. And I think that's what people need to really recognize and understand. And it's not anything to hone in on or spend too much time on, but some things are just going to be more difficult for you. Some of the things I mentioned, having my parents help pay for stuff. My parents were supportive when I put out the first order of slingshots. I had a friend, John Hennigan, who also was supportive. Those people gave me like, I can't remember, but it was like a total of like 25 grand or something like that. Like that's a lot of money. And I understand maybe other people wouldn't be able to find that. My wife was super supportive. I've had a lot of fortune and a lot of great things around me. But I also think some of that is made by you. You know, some of that's made by how you are and how you act, and how you think. So like, I think that there's opportunities all around you all the time. And maybe you're not recognizing them to some degree. And just because I said that I got help in one spot, please don't allow that to be a spot where you drop off. Like, oh shit, like, oh, he had that, so now I can't do it. Like, oh, he used steroids, so no, I can't do it. It would be like, listening to somebody else's story and they were addicted to drugs and became successful because they were, I don't know, they used cocaine or something. Now you're thinking like, I can't be successful because I didn't do that same thing. It's like, no, it doesn't mean that. It means that you're just going to have a slightly different path. Maybe you don't feel like you have supportive people around you. That's something that you should investigate. That's something that you should look into more. Why aren't the people around you supportive? Who are we talking about here? Who are these people? Why are they around? Because although I will talk with just about anybody and have good conversation with anybody and help anybody, I don't want to talk to people that are negative. I don't want to talk to people that are not going to be supportive. So the people in your life, if you feel like you have people that are really holding you back, I think take extreme ownership of that. Are they really holding you back? Legitimately, are they holding you back? I joke with my wife all the time. We just have stupid jokes that we mess with, each other all the time. And I'll say like, oh, I was going to go on a run, but you won't let me. I say, and she says stuff like that too. She was like, oh, I was going to go, do this with my friends tonight, but you won't let, we just say stuff like that. But it's in reference to the fact that a lot of people think that there's other people holding them back, and it's usually just yourself. And if you do feel like it's other people, why is that person still part of your life? Or why haven't you had a serious conversation with that person? So maybe in some cases, maybe it's your significant other, and maybe you're trying to go in a different direction with some things that you want to do. I think if you are to explain something to somebody, like really explain something to somebody, like really take your time and say, okay, like I'm tired of working at this office. I want to become a personal trainer. It's been a passion of mine forever. I just want to see what the hell happens in my life when I actually follow something that I really like and love and that I'm interested in. And I need your support. And just because your wife or somebody says to you, oh, you know what? Financially, we're not going to be able to do that. Like, just because they say that doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you have to start to have more conversation in more detail on how you're going to do that. And that's where you might need to say, hey, well, I thought you were going to say that, and I thought about this. I was thinking about, I'd work here for like 2 more years, but as I'm working here 2 more years, I'll also do some personal training, like on the weekends. I have a place where I can go and check out, and I already looked into it, and then now you have something where it's like, oh, well, wait a second. Okay. So actually what's going to happen is I'm going to have 2 jobs for a little while. I'm actually going to be making more money than normal. And then maybe the jump off point won't feel so hard or whatever it is. So there's always a way. There's always a way. All problems are solvable. I think we should play this clip from Jim Carrey. I think it's pretty relatable to a lot of what we talked about today, but it's a little bit more on like this kind of energy wavelength type thing. But I believe in a lot of this stuff. And I think it's, when I think about things like this, it makes me think it's not harmful to think about things like in this way. And it's actually can be really, really helpful to think about things in this way that you can kind of, you can manifest a lot. And manifesting things, I think, is way different than just willing things to happen. Michael Jordan on a basketball court kind of willed things to happen because he really muscled it. He really used his skill set, and he really physically made it happen. But manifesting is a little different. Manifesting is more like you just believe in it so much, and you don't ever give up on it. You just believe in it. You believe in yourself so much that your confidence doesn't waver. It stays strong. And you believe that even the most negative person in your life is there for a reason, and that they're just part of it. Or the fact that your dad died when you were 10. It's just, it's part of your success story, rather than it being some horrible thing that happened. And I think when you guys hear some of this clip, I think it'll make some sense to you.
I have an insane belief in my own ability to manifest things. Insane belief. I think it's ultimately complete sanity. I believe we're creators, and I believe we create with every thought and every word. Every moment is pregnant with the next moment of your life. We all start out with a false belief about ourselves, with some untrue thing that we believe walking through our lives. I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm gonna fail. Whatever your basic mistaken belief about yourself is, you form a personality around. You know, it's the grain of sand in the oyster. So I form characters that way a lot of times. I'll ask myself, what's the speck of sand?
Super, super cool. Believe in yourself. I think that's, the main message of today. And to break the mold, you're going to have to believe in yourself, because people are going to think or say these different things. But also you got to remember that people don't care that much. They're not really thinking about you nearly as much as you think. There's like that self-consciousness is like, it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time to really think about, oh, I wonder what people are going to think of me if I do this or if I do that, or anticipating how people are thinking about you currently. Just work on the things that you want to work on, fix what you can fix, believe in yourself, and stick to it. There's going to be a lot of time where this whole thing is going to take a long time. There's going to be a lot of time where there's no money. There's going to be a lot of time where there's no signs of real success. There's going to be just growing pains, and there's going to be parts where you're just like learning stuff. I mean, when I think back to some of those days at Westside, or some of the, I can think back on some of the stuff that I've done from Westside Barbell, like dragging a sled and stuff like that. Like, those were like lonely things I did. I just did them by myself, but I didn't even really think of them as being lonely, because it was something I really liked doing. But it's just like dragging a sled, just randomly dragging a sled in El Segundo, California, and getting like, I guess, I don't know if you could say pulled over, but getting stopped by the cops because they thought I was like eyeing up this like warehouse that got broken into a couple times that was down the street from my apartment. I was like, no, I just dragged this sled because I like to build up my hammies. They're like, carry on. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Oh, hello there. You made it to the end of the video, which means that you'll like this video. It's another deep dive. I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. And, well, at this point, you're probably still here because you just want to hear what I'm going to tell you about this video, right? Well,